in progress.
We're recording, just in case anyone was wondering. Welcome to our very first Girls in Tech Australia event for 2023. Oh, I love this already. Tonight, this event is being held here in person at Optiver and out in digital land via Zoom. My name is Katz. I'm affectionately known as Mama Katz in the Girls in Tech community. I am. It is affectionate, trust me. Before we commence proceedings, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered tonight, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past and present. As most of you would know, Girls in Tech is a non-for-profit, volunteer-led organisation. We are one of 60 chapters around the world, and here in Australia we have been running for just over 8 years. We can't do what we do without the tireless work of our volunteer community who bring our events to life. There are a number of our volunteers in the room. I'm just going to get them to quickly stand up. Volunteers are going to stand up. Stand up. Don't be embarrassed. Stand up. Stand up. Say hello. Yay. And Billy in the corner. So we are very, very grateful. If you would like to join our volunteer community, please reach out. We would absolutely love to have you on board. The more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. We actually wouldn't exist without the support of amazing companies like Optiver, who both sponsor and host us in their premises. We are thrilled that Optiver are one of our year-round sponsors and thank them for their ongoing support. I would like now to invite Virginia Wheway, who is Head of Data Strategy, to tell you a little bit about Optiver.
Okay, how's my tech skills? Getting the microphone turned on. So my name is Virginia Wheway. I've actually only been at Optiver for 4 months, and so I've been well prepped with the points I have to make to describe the company right now. So Optiver is a high-tech trading company. It has over 1,600 employees in, correct me, Sabrina, 12 countries, so including London, Singapore, that's not a country, but in 12 locations, London, Singapore, Shanghai, Austin, Chicago. So it's really exciting getting to work with international people. And at the core of what Optiver does is a lot of technology and technology in collaboration with traders and mathematicians. So this is the company here, it's very exciting for me personally, is ripe with techies and fellow proud nerd people. And so if you wonder what Optiver actually does, is they improve the markets, and which involves providing liquidity to the markets so that the markets work better and work more smoothly. So that's what Optiver does. And in my role, which is a brand new role, and Optiver decided that they wanted to get more serious about data and data strategy. I've been here for 4 months, and my role is to look at data across the whole company. So not just in trading, but in risk, in even people data, finance data, and then work out what perhaps are we doing right, what are we doing wrong, what sort of team should we hire, and how should we think about data as a whole entity, not just bits and pieces of perhaps algorithms that people are trading with. So pretty exciting, totally blank sheet, and let's see what the next little while holds.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Virginia. I enjoy the privilege of sitting on the board of Girls in Tech Australia, together with my friend P, Lord Doyle, who's on my right-hand side in the ponytail there. Wave to everyone, P. P is on the board with me. Wave. She wasn't expecting that. She's like, what the hell, Karen? I have never in my life been asked to speak louder. Like ever. Thank you, people at home. That's great. Okie dokes. Let me start that again. I enjoy the privilege of sitting on the board of Girls in Tech Australia with my friend P, who says I need to speak louder. We're committed to the empowerment, the network building and education of women in STEM. We run a number of events throughout the year, both virtually and in person across Australia. Over the next few weeks, we have events coming out of our ears. On February the 28th in Melbourne, we're going to be holding our Career Kickstart, where we will have a showcase featuring everything from career coaches and resume reviews through to professional headshots and tech education providers, in addition to hearing from some of our amazing sponsoring companies. On March the 1st, here in Sydney, our next panel event, which will be held at Tabcorp, where we'll be discussing how to be your authentic self in tech. On March the 2nd in Canberra, our friends at Atura will be hosting us as we talk about career changes for women facing fears and career shifts. On March the 30th, we'll be back here in Sydney for another panel event hosted by our friends at Zip. And conference is back in Melbourne on May 10. Be inspired and learn a skill. Hope to see you all there. It is the highlight of our year. Whew. That was just March and a bit of May. So tonight we're going to be talking about becoming a superwoman, or not. Now, in my not so humble opinion, before you I am joined by three incredible superwomen who I would like to introduce to you now. You've already met Virginia Wheway, Head of Data Strategy at Optiver. We also have Joan Tang, who is the Executive Manager, Tech Practice Lead for Service Management Strategy, Acceleration and Oversight at one of the Big Four banks. How do you say that? Like, how do you...
Joan Tang.
And Wendy Anderson, the Vice President of Professional Services, ANZ at Salesforce. Please make them all welcome. So what are we going to cover with all these superwomen tonight? We're going to chat about juggling a full-time job with additional commitments, the different resources and methods that they use to maintain a healthy balance, the importance of mental health, and whether working from home actually adds to your workload. I'd like to open by asking each of them to tell us a little bit about themselves. I told you their job titles and Joan just told you her name, but this is really just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm going to ask Wendy if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you.
Certainly. Can you hear me at the back? And I'm sure we will hear if you can't hear me online. So fantastic to be here. I am clearly not a native Australian with this accent. I am Scottish, but lived in Australia for 11 years roughly. As Kiki introduced, I work for the wonderful Salesforce, leading professional services for Australia and New Zealand. I've been with Salesforce for just under 2 years, and prior to that, I worked for Cisco in Australia for 8 years, and then Microsoft in the UK for nearly 9 years. My entire life has been in the tech industry, so I too am a bit of a nerd. Love that, clearly love it, because I've spent my entire career in that forum and just so excited about the topic we're going to talk about today. That's me. I'm a twin, if anyone cares, and I love horses. The horse didn't cause this though. That was just plain stupidity. If anyone can see, I have a boot on and a cast. Yeah.
Me, I didn't do it. Joan?
Hi everyone, I'm Joan Tang, as I've mentioned before, and thanks for the great introduction, Karen. Myself, I started my career in radio broadcasting, and in a nutshell was helping new migrants settle into Australia and making up stories in the radio like where to get the best sales online, or where to get the best sales at Coles and Woolworths, which one should you go to, which one's better. Then I moved on to my next career was in Deloitte. I worked in Deloitte for 7 years. During that period, I started as a trainee analyst and started in audit and assurance, which is basically audit, but for the listed companies. And because I was studying a commerce and law degree at the time, I moved to forensic, which is about white collar crime. That was when I started learning about data analytics, really loved it. We actually started calling it data manualytics behind the scene because it was very manual at first. But over time it grew, and basically during my Deloitte career, I worked overseas as well as domestically. Subsequent to Deloitte, and this is going to link back to mental health actually, I experienced burnt out. And I don't think at that time I didn't realize what it really was until I actually took a break, and then I recognized what it was. Subsequent to that, I went back to Deloitte for work for a bit and realized that wasn't the career for me. So I moved to work for a bank at one of the big 4 banks. And then 3 years after that, I had my son. And then later on, I moved to another bank. And now I'm still working in the financial services industry, but in technology.
Thank you very much. Virginia?
Yes, I'm Virginia. So I've been at Optiver for 4 months. As you can see by my grey hair, I've actually been in tech and mathematics for 35 years. So I actually studied mathematics back in you guys wouldn't have been born, back in 1989, I started university. I studied mathematics. The industries I've worked at in BHP twice, in mining. I've worked medical research. I've been an expert statistician in court cases, 12 years at Boeing, which was a blast. So I lived in Seattle for 3 years working in the R&D division of Boeing, which was super fun. Where else have I worked? I've worked in startups. I've also worked futures trading research. And now Optiver, actually, there was some people in an audience of a conference I was speaking at, Optiver people, and they saw me speak, and then they rang me the next day saying, we want someone who knows about data, and you look like you know what you're talking about. So here I am. And then just sort of off to the side, I'm a mum. I've got an 11-year-old daughter, so really keen to get into the topic of like how you try and juggle everything and be a superwoman or not. I have been known to feed my daughter mouldy bread for dinner and had to pick the mould off it because I'm just trying to juggle everything. And so that's me.
So what I've learnt so far is that STEM will give you grey hair and not to ever go to your house for dinner. Works for me. So Virginia, it's interesting that we always introduce ourselves with our job title. I'm really curious as to who you are over and above what you've just explained, outside of being the head of data strategy at Optiver, and why what we're talking about tonight is important to you.
Sure. So, yeah, so I'm a proud nerd outside of my title. I'm a mum, you know, I actually had a daughter when I was 41, so I was very fortunate to have a child in my 40s, so I love my daughter. I'm a member of a gym if anyone lives, I live in Marrickville. There's an amazing women's only gym in Marrickville, which is a really fun community, and so we go to all sorts of events and bands and things together. So that's really important to me for both my mental health and to be part of a community. And my super passion in life is we've got some acreage up in the Hunter Valley, so we're building cabins out of recycled stuff we find on the side of the roads. We've built 2 cabins up there. And I also rescue guinea pigs. That's me.
I can't make fun of that.
I say if anyone wants a guinea pig, I've got 16 that need rehoming at the moment. They're all girls, don't worry. It's going to stay at 16, but if anyone wants a guinea pig.
That's really lovely. But I don't want one. Wendy, it's nice to hear about successful women in business having lives outside of work. Can you tell me why this topic of mental health in particular is so important to you, and why you wanted to be involved in this particular Girls in Tech event?
Certainly. So when we have strong mental health, we can cope with anything, superwoman or not. We can learn, we're more creative. We can generally cope with most things. When our mental health is low, it's never a good thing. And I've been there. I've been where I've been very, very stressed, and it feels terrible. And the reason this topic is very passionate to me is that it's perfectly okay to feel stressed. It's perfectly okay to not feel all together, whether it's moldy bread or whatever it is, it's perfectly okay and normal. The reason I'm here is to urge you all to think about what would your good mental health plan look like, regardless of where you are in your career. Really think about what that looks like so that you are ready and able to cope with some of your triggers, or when things are candidly just becoming too much, which nowadays, KK, as we all know, is more often than not. So that's why I'm here today and very passionate.
No, maybe I don't. Yeah? Right. Oh, well, you're just going to have to deal with my inept switching. Joan, at work you are an executive manager, and I'm not going to give them the rest of it, at one of the big 4 banks. What does your life outside of the bank look like?
So as I alluded to before, I have a child. He is a boy. He's 5 years old, and also I love him a lot.
What do you feed him?
Different kind of moldy bread. Just kidding. But you know, seriously, like as a mum, as a working mother, we don't always get it right, and it's okay. why I'm really passionate about this is because I just wanted to actually showcase what a journey I've had. I'm still learning, and it's okay to be learning. I know we're human, but the most important part is to never give up. So one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about this topic is I know of people who've given up personally, and it's hard. It's complicated. The feelings are, I felt upset. I felt angry at why did they give up? I felt guilty for not checking in with them a bit earlier. There are things that we can all do. Each of us is experiencing a different journey. So never think that you're alone. It's my key message as well. And then outside of work, apart from being a mom, working, I'm also studying an executive MBA at UNSW HESM. Fingers crossed I'll finish by August, September this year. Technically, the MBA is a 3-year degree. Executive MBA is 3 years, but I've taken my time, so I'm taking around 4.5 years to do it. And that's okay as well, right? So it depends on the style that, like the work that you want, whether you find enjoyment out of it, and it's okay to take a break. Apart from that, I'm also really passionate about growing people's potential. I'm a career coach on the side. And yeah, so I think it's really, like, life is so short, even though we may never know what happens at a fleeting moment. Your life can just disappear because an accident happens. It's like a sliding door moment. But if you're able to grasp every moment to find a space where you feel happy or content, that's your opportunity. And that's why I'm really passionate about helping people grow their careers.
So you're all understanding why they're superwomen, right?
Yeah. I don't think I'm a superwoman at all. I think when being called a superwoman, it sets a level of expectation. But what I learned about mental health is sometimes it's once you set that expectation, but you're only here, it makes, at least from my perspective, it makes my mental health worse.
It's funny, you sort of talk about as a mum and, the mouldy bread and whatever, and we have laughs about it. I don't know that there's a mum out there that doesn't feel like she screwed it up at some point in time. I mean, I've screwed up 2 kids. It's excellent. They'll tell you, you ask them. But very seriously, it's really making that effort and doing the best job that you can. That's all we can do, right? And I think that you apply that across the board to whether you work, to your extracurricular, just to life in general. We just do your best. And that's the messaging that I've always given my kids. Just do your best. That's all we ask.
I was going to say on that one too, when I was completely falling apart, the first day of school, and I was meant to be at a meeting and this and that. And the principal just said, just love them. And I thought, I can do that. She said, just love them. Just don't worry about all the things you're expecting yourself to do.
Exactly right. So Virginia, while you're on there, can you tell me what a typical day in your life looks like as head of data strategy for Optiver and advisor for Milk Run and anything else that might be on your plate?
So from opening my eyes or from getting into the office?
Let's go from opening your eyes, because I'm actually interested in the good stuff.
So from opening my eyes, then I groan often. I mean, I love what I do, but it's like, oh my God, then have we made the school lunch? I've got to get to the train by this time. And who's picking Elkie up for gymnastics? And when's my first meeting? Usually that's one of the first things that goes through my head. Although I must admit, a nice trick, even though it's not great to log in when you're at home, I often like to log in the night before a work day. So then I go to bed and go, oh, right, yes, I've got this and then this, and it's very clear in my head. So yeah, once I've juggled the eat your Weet-Bix, get something that actually looks okay, get down to the station, get into work. Often I'm a very, very social person, so I like to go around and say hi to people, and being new here as well, I'm really big on building relationships and just getting to know people as humans, not, even though we're techies, we're also very human individuals as well. And then at the moment, I'm in a lot of meetings, so I actually don't do much work. I don't code or do much anymore, but I'm in a lot of meetings where people describe to me particularly the data problems and the business problems they're trying to solve, and based on my lots of grey hair, 35 years experience, I can pull out of my filing cabinet, oh, this is a solution we tried, perhaps at Koala. I see one of my Koala friends is at the back there, and this is something we tried at BHP. And then so I do a lot of advisory work, I guess, so not so much down and dirty in the code, but a lot of advisory work. And then 3 nights a week, I'm determined to get to the gym. So I get home and try and make it to a 6:30 gym class. And then as I'm running out the door, I tell my husband what to cut up for dinner, and then go to the gym, come home, cook dinner, and then sometimes watch Married at First Sight.
You were doing that. Hands up. Who's watching Married? Yeah. Half of you did not admit it. I just know. I know you didn't.
Perfect antidote to coding in your head all day. You just watch that.
I'm a survivor chick myself, but that's another story altogether. Thank you. Wendy, you're Vice President of Professional Services for the whole of ANZ at Salesforce, which is quite the large gig. How do you juggle that demanding role and life outside of Salesforce?
So from a personal perspective, I'm a serial planner, like an obsessive planner. So plan is my first, when I'm losing my head thing. So when you look at your phone, I'm firstly thinking, where's my plan? Where am I in the plan? What have I done? I will admit to being obsessed with using technology to help me get through my private and business life. I've been known for putting, and I've got a colleague here with me and she's going to laugh when I say this, putting my makeup on while screaming at Siri, add cornflakes to the shopping list, or add this to the to-do list, or like into the phone while doing the mascara. So huge fan of using the technology to help you. The other thing, KK, is, and it's taken me quite a long time to get used to doing this, is knowing your priorities and knowing when to say no. I spent a large part of my younger life saying yes to everything. And I'm surprised I don't permanently have 2 broken legs, because I would be running back and forward trying to keep every person happy. And it's physically not possible. Whether you're Superwoman, Superman, Superchild, you can't do it. So know your priorities and be very clear that it's perfectly okay to say no. The other thing is, when people offer help, say yes. I used to always say, don't worry, I've got it. Don't worry, I've got it. Don't worry. You don't have it. You're not super. Take the help, because we all pay it forward by doing things like this. So use the tech, use your family, use your friends, and pay it forward.
Say no.
Say no to that. Say no to that as well.
Say no. Joan, I'd love to jump to you. Just like Virginia and Wendy, you have an incredible demanding role as the executive manager at one of the big 4 banks. And I imagine that takes up quite a bit of your time. How different does a day in your life look like since you stepped up into your most recent role?
Thanks, Karen. Great question. So this is actually my officially the first technology role. So I started this role in April last year. The difference between this role versus my other previous role, which was all around legal, risk, compliance, white-collar crime, team organizational management type kind of thing. I still need to do team organizational performance here. The main difference is I've always heard of the term imposter syndrome, but it never really kicked in for me until I got this tech role. I'm surrounded by super smart people. I'm surrounded by coders. I'm surrounded by engineers. I'm surrounded by technology service managers who've worked as a service manager for 20 plus years. It's incredible. They have a wealth of knowledge. And having the word strategy in the title sounds really sexy, but it's also a little bit of a BS kind of title. According to one of my colleagues who met me on the very first day, like, oh, that's a very BS title. I was like, yes, it is. Potentially it is. So that's the main difference for me. But from a work hour perspective, it's not quite that different. I'm very passionate about what I do. I always give it my best. I remember when Karen invited me here, I was thinking, oh, should I say yes? If I say yes, I know I'll definitely do it. And I remember telling Karen, give me a day to have a think about it before I jumped in with the yes. And I did think about it. And once I jump in with a yes, I definitely commit to it. So that's who I am. Back to your question about what does my normal day look like? So wake up, get my son ready. If I was to flip the switch back maybe a little bit further as a younger mum, childcare opens at 6 a.m. Closes at 6 p.m. I'm usually the person who drops my child first and she's the person who picks up my child last. And even the year before kindergarten starts, there's a program in Australia called preschool program where you can practice, your child can practice going to school 9 to 3, and the parent can prepare recess and lunch. I did not do that. My son started kindy this year. I was in a whole lot of trouble, but hey, it's a learning curve, right? So kind of like what we were saying earlier, if someone offers help to actually provide that service, say yes to it because it's available.
Yeah, can I just jump in quickly there? I hate to say, I used to feel guilty about it, but I outsource quite a bit in life. And also by doing that, there's in my area, other mums that are trying to, do a small business, or their kids have just started school. And so I've gotten help with some childcare. I have someone who helps with ironing, someone who helps with even, some of the shopping, cleaning. I didn't feel guilty about it at all. And the people who actually are helping me really thanked me that, that was their first job after their kids went to school, or they helped them get back on their feet after a separation or something. So like Tia said, don't be afraid that you don't have to do everything. School lunches suck.
Yeah. One more from me, which is controversial. Everyone else's lack of planning isn't your problem. So when people dump stuff on you, your answer is no.
Can I just say that I go to work just so that we can have a cleaner? Like other people like it for paying mortgages and putting food on the table. I have it so someone will clean my house for me. And I'm very proud, very proud. I love you tonight, you're awesome. Joan, I'm going to ask you another one. We've seen a big shift in the way we work since COVID. With working from home making it so much easier to constantly be on the clock, how do you find a balance in your work and personal life?
So it's also a bit controversial here. For those on the recording, please don't quote me out of context, but I think work-life balance doesn't really exist. It's kind of a work-life pendulum where because it's all work-life integration, because you only have one body, you only have 24 hours in a day. It's about work-life integrating with each other. Especially, I think it's probably really dawned on me during COVID when we have to work, but we also have to stay at home because we're not allowed to go out of our house. That's what it's about. But the balance isn't there for me, but it's about how do I feel at the end of each day? Do I feel at peace? Do I feel content? Do I feel like I've delivered what I said I was going to deliver?
Awesome, thank you. And it's funny, we talk about COVID and you all live in Sydney. I live in Melbourne. So, as much as you thought you were staying home, yeah, my husband's lucky he's still around. That's all I'm saying. All righty. Virginia, we know that over the last few years, we have definitely seen more focus and attention turned to mental health and the impact that it can have on our personal and professional lives. How have you felt this shift?
Interesting. So I've actually always been quite open about my mental health, and I come from a family with a bit of lineage of mental health struggles. So it's something I guess I've been, not comfortable is not the word, but I've been around for a lot of my life. I had severe postnatal depression. I had postnatal psychosis, and I'm very open about that. So I was in and out of hospital for 2 years after I had my baby. So my husband was the primary carer. And so I'm actually quite open about mental health. But I think also through perhaps the journey that I've had, I've got my antenna up a little bit more than I might have had, say 10 years ago. And so part of this, even just walking around and getting to know people, face to face, especially as we're all coming back into the office, it's really trying to have my antenna up to see, hey, are you okay? Do you need to go out of the office for a coffee? Do you need to leave early, etc. And so I think it really has to be a human, a human intervention rather than let's just put all of these checkbox mental health programs in place. I think we, us people with, passionate about relationships and building connection, we really have, I think, a really amazing role that we can play with our colleagues, peers, family, You know, even sometimes people you see at the train station just saying, hey, you okay? And just being a human contact. I think that, and especially as we all start to come back into the office, can't be underestimated.
It's actually very funny. Since I started my business, my hashtag is Care Matters. So I know we have Are You OK Day and all that kind of thing, but for me, Are You OK Day is an everyday. So I love what you're doing around the office. And I think it's really important that we look out for each other and we look after each other. I think it's just fundamental to our needs as humans. But anyway, not about me. Wendy, I'm curious to hear what methods and resources you use personally to maintain your healthy, balanced life.
I love the Calm app. If anyone hasn't used the Calm app, definitely try it out. But yeah, I think I mentioned priorities. Just be clear on what your priorities are, because your personal life and your business life buckets, they're always full, right? There's always work, there's always things to do personally, demands on your day-to-day life. So be very clear what your priorities are. And I say no, get used and get comfortable with saying no. When I think about myself and my role, and it is quite all-consuming, I won't lie, when you're on late calls frequently, you're on calls early in the morning, make sure if you're having a discussion with your leader that, you know, if you're doing these all of the time between 9 and 10 or 12 and 11 or 2 and 3, you're going to be at the gym. You're going to be, but set expectations and make sure that you take that time. It's really, really important. And don't let that time bleed into, I'll just check my laptop, I'll just check my phone. Be really focused and intentional. That's what fills my wonderful colleague here will say, your joy cup. What gives you joy? You've got to keep that joy cup filled up to keep your mental health. So set expectations that you're not around. Have the discussion openly with your leader or manager or your team. And, you know, just be clear, if you've got a large team reporting to you, you're going to be unavailable between these set times. And I promise you, even half an hour will make a huge difference. The main thing is that you're doing something that gives you that feeling of absolute joy and you're switching off, and don't let something bleed into it. So that for me, KK, whether it's riding a horse, reading a book, listening to some music, and it's a practice behavior. Like when you're certainly as young as all these wonderful faces here, you're so keen and eager to progress. It's so important you've got the mental strength and resilience to keep going. So even if it's 15 minutes, half an hour, take a meeting outside, go for a walk, stand and look at the sun, find a way to fill that joy cup. Thank you, Natasha Blackman, for giving me the hashtag joy cup. Tash.
So, I mean, that is a great way to go about it, and I quite like that. I think I might take the joy cup home to my children. But in terms of what you've put in place in the workplace, is there stuff over and above that?
Yeah, definitely. So when it comes to a work perspective, we're very lucky in Salesforce where we have many software applications, and one of which we can set statuses that are focusing, resting, do not disturb, so it blocks your messages, blocks anything coming into you. And we actively encourage people to use those statuses. So it's like the back off, leave me alone status, and then your messages won't come through. So I think it's really important that we have the culture that encourages that. As a leadership team, we talk about, you know, value of an individual isn't the hours that they work, it's the output and the results that they receive, and make sure that we aren't rewarding behavior that is someone works 18 hours a day. That's not good. That's a bad thing. We're going to kill people and they're going to get burnout and stress. So actively encouraging the type of your behavior and rewarding the right behavior is really important. So using the tools, being very conscious that effort and output doesn't equal the number of hours worked. So creating that culture, KK, setting that expectation with your leaders and making sure that's cascading down. And as my wonderful friends here also said, it is a visual thing when you can see when someone isn't quite right. When you're working with people 8 hours a day, 5 days a week or longer, you know when someone's not quite right. So having those two eyes and just saying, are you okay? Are you doing okay? So that's the type of activities that we put in place.
Thank you.
You can't make fun of that, can you?
No, I can't make fun. There's so much I can't make fun of tonight. That and the guinea pigs. I can't. Joan, you mentioned being burnt out earlier. You know, for a lot of us, we feel overwhelmed when we're burnt out. And we feel as though that there's no way out of that cycle. What sort of resources have you lent on in the past to help when you feel that way?
For me personally, I've actually tried, without seeing a doctor, I tried different things, whether it's dragging myself out of bed to do maybe some movements, whether it's following a YouTube clip or something, but it's always a drag. But for me, I think what was a true turning point was taking myself to see a medical professional for help. And the medical professional doesn't even need to be like a psychologist. It doesn't need to be of like a super expert. It's just your local GP. It's just your local GP. And it's just booking in time. I remember when I thought about this and I was like, oh, people don't go to GP to tell them that they're feeling a bit low, they're very low on energy, or they feel sad or upset, right? But it was one friend who told me about this, and they said they go to a GP regularly every month to talk about mental health issues. And that's when I started going to GP, because I didn't realize you could go to a GP for it. I thought you go to a GP for like a headache, a fever, or infection, etc. So that was a turning point for me. But from now on, I also know from my perspective, it's going to gym. I love to do group workouts, and I know at least one person here who actually is a facilitator of a group workout. Maybe you guys can meet her later and find out who she is. It's a great opportunity to network. But also the second thing is doing gratitude exercise. For example, I find that mental health is at times a shift in perspective. And when I say this mental health, it's not diagnosed depression, because that you may need to seek medical help, like truly medicine and everything. I'm saying if you feel down and if you feel upset, try and practice and think about 3 things that you're grateful for today, because every day might not be a good day, but there's going to be at least one thing that's good about it if you look closely.
Thank you. So if we keep going along that trail of thought, and we move to mental well-being of your teams and employees, how do you foster an environment that allows your team members to truly look after their mental health?
That was actually a really good question. I don't have a structured way to think about how do I foster an environment to make sure my team's mental health is well. And the reason why I say that is because at the end of the day, it comes down to us. We can't expect our partner, we can't expect our child, we can't expect our parents to make the world perfect for us. And I know this is, they can encourage us, but they're not ultimately responsible for our own actions. However, having said that though, I think checking in with a colleague saying, how are you? And genuinely checking in saying, how are you? Instead of jumping straight into a transactional conversation, it's like, hey, so-and-so, can you give me a document on X, Y, Z? I think that's probably the best way to go at it. Ultimately, reminding ourselves, we need to be compassionate. Everyone have their own lived experience. So that's my key tip. But at the end of the day, again, it's great to have all of you here. And if you ever lose someone because they decide to give up on life, and if you ever felt guilty or upset or angry, for me, it was definitely guilt, because I kept asking myself, why did I not check in with my friend earlier? Maybe I could have done something differently. Maybe I could have called them on a different day. I think ultimately we just have to remember we can control what we can control. And we are so fortunate to be here in Australia where there's access to medical advice.
Very true and excellent advice there. Virginia, you talked before about your own journey. And how did that affect the professional life with poor mental health?
Yeah, actually, it's a bit of a confronting story in a way. So I was one of the unlucky, I think it's 1 in 5 women who suffer from postnatal depression. And I unfortunately got the one with the postnatal psychosis, where you actually want to harm your child and you start seeing things really quite horrible. And so at the time, I have a beautiful partner who actually left his job to be the primary carer, and I went back to work. And to be honest, I was a bit of a robot, and I just limped through. And at the time, my employer did the right thing and let me work part-time, supported me to go to medical appointments. But then unfortunately, when I got back to work, I was made redundant. So I was unwell for 2 years and I was made redundant, which is quite crushing. But I guess then my psychiatrist was like, let's go, get them, come on. And, at the time, it's sort of, I guess the lesson in that is, obviously I had to grieve and I felt that wasn't fair and whatnot. So I think that's also why I'm quite open about these things. It is a medical illness and unfortunately it is quite common. But then since, unfortunately, I was made redundant there, I've gone on to sort of 4 or 5 other, senior leadership data positions. I am very grateful, enormously grateful that I got well from that illness. So that's one of the biggest gratitudes in my life, that I got well, and that I am not, I'm not defined by that illness. I've still got so much more to me than the fact that I was ill. And so that was sort of 8 years ago, I've had, 4 or 5 really amazing senior leadership roles. I'm actually also now much more inspired to get beside particularly younger women and help them on their journey. And I think too, the giving your time to someone is one of the most valuable things you can do. So if you can give your time to someone and encourage them, I think that goes a long way.
So if you actually had somebody in your team who came to you and said, look, I'm not coping, what are the steps that you would take?
So I personally would take them out and spend the time with them, and as long as they needed, one-on-one, if we needed 17 coffees or whatever, I would take that time with them. And then as a leader, we're obviously trained that they're, HR and medical professionals. So as a leader, we're trained on some of the practicalities to do the EAP systems at work. So I would, if someone was really, really struggling, I would make sure that they were going to go and get help at that time, or that they were going home to their partner, etc. And I would keep checking in on them, but not being the responsible person for their clinical care or their care, because that's not I can be a good human and I can really look after someone, but if they actually need a professional and someone to talk to, and to just sort of keep encouraging that, are you going to this person? And then I obviously, asking, do you need adaptions at work? How can I help you? I can spend time with you, etc.
You were nodding along there. Did you have anything to add?
Me?
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's, firstly, thank you, amazing for sharing that and sharing your journey. Everything you said there totally resonates, and I alluded to it earlier, KK. I strongly feel that women have a real talent, a true skill to be able to see when someone is struggling or someone is in pain. And I think as individuals, we owe that to the people around us, our friends, our family, our colleagues, just to take a second and think about if you see that and have a quiet word and offer some help. We cannot replace medical professionals. That's not what we do. But it's amazing, and I'm getting goosebumps. So the situations where I've been in like that, and the gratefulness of the individual of an intervention and an offer of help goes so far, just so far. So even if you have a hint, find the words gently to say it and quietly, but just, fulfill that urge and ask the question.
Absolutely. Sound advice from you both. Did you have anything to add there on the...
Thanks for raising that. I think giving people that time is important. Like, you have that moment and the connection with another person. And if you see that they're unwell, yes, take them out for a few coffees, give them that time so you could actually hear them, because what they're saying to you is they're reaching out to you for help. And that is it can be a turning moment for someone as well. I was also going to add, most workplaces in Australia probably have sick days. You don't have to take sick days just for physical health or a medical appointment, whatever. You can actually take them, at least I know the financial services companies who I worked with, they actually encourage you to book in advance mental health days. And that's what they can be used for as well.
Absolutely. I think it's just so important, particularly given what we've been through over the last few years. The mental health issues across the country are rife. So, you know, if we can help each other, then I think that that's just awesome. But all of you have just given some very great advice, so thank you. Wendy, it's a tight line to walk between being a high achiever and a total burnout. Have you ever felt this pressure, and how did you get yourself back on track?
Yes, I have. Self-imposed, to be very honest. You know, the pressure we put ourselves on as women and men, but we have a predominantly female audience here, to be the best, push us hard, get to where we believe we should be. And yeah, I certainly put myself under a huge amount of pressure. And then a few years ago, I gave myself a bit of a talking to. And that talking was, why did I compare my success, my value of achievement, often to other people? So Bob or Jane were promoted into that role. Why wasn't it me? I probably didn't even want the role. Just why did someone else get promoted before me? Ridiculous, really, when you think about it. But you measure yourself against a bar, or certainly I was, that other people put in place, rather than having my own bar and being clear on what that looked like. But it took me a long time to get there, KK. So certainly I would urge you to think about where is your achievement bar? Because when you know when that bar is, you can measure your success towards that and then counsel it with like a burnout. Take small wins. It doesn't have to be a huge jump. It could be a successful project. Congratulations on a great job done. Take all of these things as an achievement. It doesn't have to be a huge promotion. That way alone, I feel confident that you will not be pushing yourself too far to burn out, because sometimes some things just aren't achievable. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, regardless of how hard you've worked or the results that you've got. So be clear what those achievements look like, and it should help without reaching for a star that you might not get to or that you might not want. So just know where that achievement bar is for you.
FOMO is something, isn't it?
Totally.
Totally. My sister-in-law's like that. We'd be driving down the road with her and she'd see a queue and she goes, what's that? We should check that out. It's like, where?
Meals in restaurants, you know, when you're with your friend or partner and someone orders a meal and you think, I really wish I'd ordered that. That's mine all the time.
You loud and clear. All right, so I've got a question for all of you. So many companies are working to the hybrid or working remote models. And I have a bit of a story. I don't know about you, but like I work from home a lot. That my office is at home, which was a real pain in the bum during COVID, because then everyone was in my office at recess. My husband's a teacher. Recess, they all have recess. I don't have recess. They have recess. They're in my office. But now they've all gone back to school or uni or whatever they happen to be doing. But for me, I have a bit of a break and I'm putting washing on, right? Yeah, you're hearing me? Yeah, right, okay. So we're moving to that hybrid or remote working model, and I'm keen to know what your companies are doing and what we think the benefits of the negatives are. Like on the one hand, it's great that I'm getting the washing done, but I'm doing the washing. Like, you know, it doesn't compute in my head. So let's go down the line. Joan, I'm going to start with you. What is your company doing around that hybrid and remote working, and what do you think the benefits or the negatives might be?
So the company that, at least my team, what we do is, again, this is why it's work-life integration, not work-life balance. It's all integrated into one. But it's actually having that conversation or understanding that individual as who they are, what they want to deliver, like what they want in life, how they want their life to look like, how they want their life to feel. And it changes over time, right? Just like if we look at our own personal different stages of life, when we're a child, what we need is different from when we become a teenager, when we become an adult, etc. It can also change at a moment in time. For example, if you're in an accident or your child has an accident at school, so you need to quickly drop work and get to your child, for example. But understanding priorities, what you prioritize first, is really important. So the company that I work at the moment and the team that I work at, we consider what does the individual need. Secondly, is what does the team want to deliver as a team? And it's really important for the individual and the team to be aligned. And if they don't align, something needs to give. Or what at least our team does is we encourage this person to find a fit at a better team or allocate work that fits with that person as an individual. And what I tend to do is I always try to notice the strengths in different individual, because the world is only beautiful because of all of our differences. Imagine if we're all the same. It's going to be a very boring world.
Virginia?
Yeah, so where at Optiver, we have a 3-2 policy, so 3 days in the office and 2 at home. And that's, I guess that that's made clear when you're interviewing as well, because I think, some tech jobs, people do only want to work from home, and that's and that may cut them out from a certain number of jobs. So we have a 3-2 at Optiver. It's not prescribed which 3 days you're in the office, so you could pick and choose with your team. But actually, a story I wanted to tell, which I actually really like. So I report into the CTO, a very important guy, big, massive job. But he also has 3 little kids, and his wife also works. And so I guess he models so if you see the boss coming in at 10:30 because he had to drop the kids off, and because he really wanted to get in a gym session, and he has a meeting with Amsterdam at 9 p.m, that's what is really encouraging for me in the workplace I see, is that we don't have a boss who is this, not what is perfect, hey, but we have a boss that is modeling that genuine flexibility. We get to know each other again as humans. So I have a child of this age. She's at primary school. She has these needs. My boss has 3 young children. There are some people who don't have children, but they're very competitive athletes, for example. So there is the sort of expectation to come in and build that. It's really nice. So we get free lunch at work and free breakfast. And there's a chef, you get hot food, it's amazing. And so that's also part of people coming in 3 days a week, is to just build that community around work.
And I've eaten breakfast here, and I would come in just for that, let me tell you. It's really good.
I have every day smoked salmon, avocado sourdough, cooked mushrooms sometimes, eggs, and then if you go on the lifts, the menu is stuck near the lift. So see what you're missing out on your way back.
Yeah, bragging is not cool. No. Wendy, how about at Salesforce? How does it work for you?
So very similar. And we have breakfast and lunch as well, and it's very nice, which is awesome. But the same experience we had, and certainly from Salesforce all up, it's globally the same policy, success from anywhere. But a couple of caveats. We went through COVID, and of course everyone was at home, and certainly from my teams, they're predominantly customer facing. So they spent their consultants, they spent their whole careers being in front of customers, and suddenly they're having to do their job from home. That was incredibly hard for them. Trying to be a business consultant and deliver technical capability remotely is very, very hard. So for some of us, stuffing the stuff in the machine, as I wasn't such a joy for other folks who were at home, who were maybe house sharing, living with their family. Very, very challenging, right? So back to the brave new world, and we too have a bit of a 3-2-1, 3 days in the office, 2 of those with your team, 1 determined team meetings and so forth. So certainly I'd say a very similar environment to my friends here. From your question on the pros and cons, we saw the most dramatic impact to the feeling of connection. So in all of our employee surveys, that lack of, I was going to say physical connection. I don't mean physical touch. I mean togetherness rather than physical connection. Everyone told our surveys that it was really, really low. At the same time, in the same surveys, we were also told everyone wanted to work from home. So there's this real dichotomy of, we're missing a connection. We want to be with our colleagues, but we want all the flexibility of working at home. So we're working through this continual hybrid environment. We do know that when teams work together, the connection and the productivity and the joy is much stronger. So it's finding this balance across the washing machine and the work life and all of our commitments, and feeling that sense of connection. So I don't know whether it's smoked salmon and avocado we need, but there definitely is a challenge, I would say, in most workplaces just now, continuing that connection when not everyone is in the office at the same time. It doesn't have to be 3 days a week, 4 days, 5 days, even if it's 1 day. I think as long as most people are together, we need to look to something like that, in my humble opinion.
It's very true. It's quite funny. It's one of the things I'd said to a lot of my clients, is that you're missing that incidental collaboration. that chat around the water cooler, which starts with the football but then descends into something around the project. And you miss just that, hey, can you tell me about, around, like when you're sitting next to someone or across from someone. But agreed, everyone wants to work at home. It's like it's a lot more convenient to sit there in my Ugg boots and my trackies than it is to have to doll myself up and take myself into the city. Not that I do that, but they, you know, all you probably do. Anyway.
Can I add a tiny thing on that? I was just thinking about it, that it was really interesting when we were all in video all of the time. The how are you, how's things, the football, the water cooler, it went downhill because everyone was back to back to back to back. So it was like next. So the warmth and the pleasantries went. I mean, they're going to go certainly after 2 years for Melbourne and a year and a half for Sydney. So I think it really puts a stamp on the fact that that personal connection around mental health is absolutely helped by physical connection, Tash.
Using the joy cup. Last question. One piece of advice that you can give to our Girls in Tech community to help them kickstart 2023 and help them manage work and life, what would it be? Joan, I'm starting with you.
Really hard to pick one specific one. I think as girls and having experienced imposter syndrome, the key thing to remind ourselves is go reach for the star, go reach for the best of your ability, have massive goals, but also be realistic and realize you can have all of that, but maybe just not all at the same time. Yeah.
Virginia?
My favorite constant piece of advice as I mentor and meet with a lot of women is back yourself. So again, when you're seeing, oh, you know, they're so good at this or they're doing that and I'm not so sure of myself, like back yourself. Like, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, just that one piece of advice, back yourself.
Wendy?
We get to the 1st of January, New Year's resolutions. I'm a great believer in last year is last year, the good, the bad, and the damn ugly. It is what it is. Make your plans for the year moving forward and forget all the bad things that happened next year, if there was any. Focus on a plan and moving forward.
I love all of that. Thank you, ladies. We have time for a few questions. Anyone got any in the room? Okay, first one went up there. Do we have another microphone by any chance? Or we'll share Wendy's because she's a good sharer. Thank you. So, lady all the way at the back. Wave nicely. There we go. Sorry, TV land, you can't see her. You just have to look at us.
Hiya, thank you. Can you guys hear me all right? Yep, cool. I actually might be known to a few. Hi, Billy. I resonated with a lot of what you guys actually said. It was really powerful. And I think one of the key things that came out of that was being able to say no. But a lot of us might struggle with a lot of internalized guilt around doing that and being able to prioritize what you would care about versus what I guess the business cares about. I'm just curious to see how the panel have managed that previously and finding those boundaries and being able and empowered to say no on really important things.
Wonderful point, and you're spot on. It's really hard to say no, right? It's just hard. The best way I found to start saying no is no but. So if the question was, can I have it now or can I have it tomorrow? No, but you can have it in a week's time. Does that work? So start with a no but a yes, and then build up on your no. And when it's really, really hard things to say no to, I'm a great believer in you can say anything, it's how you say it. So know who you're speaking to, stating the obvious here, but know who you're speaking to, know how they will react. You know, if it's someone who's very fiery, frame it in a way that's not going to upset them. It takes a bit of preparation when it's with someone challenging, but unemotional, fact-based no's never fail. I promise you, they never do. But it's hard. So start with a no but and then build up to a solid no.
I might just add to that. That's a really, really good tip. I wish I knew that when I was younger as well. The other tip that I would like to provide is do you know what your priorities are? And as Wendy mentioned earlier, you need to know what your priorities are. Second step is, if you want to say no to someone, you may want to say no, but because my priorities is 1, 2, 3, my values is 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, what you're asking of me is not priority number 1, 2, or 3, or doesn't align to one of my values. Because that way you educate that person on, they'll know what to come back to you for.
I was just going to quickly add to, so you took my point briefly, but so sometimes when you say no, the person asking you didn't realize that you had, 47 other things on your list. And also too, I found it is possible people actually can respect you more when you say no. So that's, even if you've never done it, just get back yourself. People often do respect you more, especially, I think we're all a very discerning bunch and we're, expecting the best of ourselves. You're not saying no to everything. And when people realize that it's a considered no, they do respect you more.
One more thing. I often say I can, but that means I'm going to have to drop and then list them out and then give them the option, especially if it's your manager. And usually they're like, oh, okay, drop that one. It's actually a priority 6 instead of priority 1. To stop because the pizza's getting cold.
Have we got pizza? Oh, no one told me that.
I'm telling you now.
Oh my goodness. In that case,
I have a gym membership too. Working.
Gotcha. In that case, I would really love to thank our panelists, Joan Tang, Virginia Wheway, and Wendy Anderson. It sounds to me like we all learned a lot. Please tell the world what you learned today on your socials. Our hashtag is #GITAU, Girls in Tech Australia. Please take photos with the neon sign. It takes a lot to get it here. So damn it, use it. Hopefully I will see you again at one of our events soon. March 1 here in Sydney, March 30 here in Sydney, Melbourne on the 28th, Canberra on the 2nd, and there's a lot more coming where that came from. Find these amazing women on LinkedIn. They would love to hear from you and they'll be here for you to have a chat. TV Land, have a great night. Thank you all for coming.